Okay, hi. So yeah, today I wanted to do a quick presentation on pretty much basically the relationship between artificial intelligence and computer science, and more to as how that relates to our technical writing work here at OTW. And so, really quickly, what we're going to explore, it's basically just how is technical writing being affected, right? Especially in computer science by AI. And then what's that going to change for us, right? What's the long-term impacts? What are the short-term impacts? What are some things we can use? What are some tools we could use? These type of things, all surrounding AI and computer science with a lens of technical writing. And so for a little bit of background, computer science, it's basically the study of computational program system software, right? Coding, programmers, developing things, these type of things. So you could have positions like database administrator, IT project manager, right? Systems analyst, AI developer, these types of things. Some people would consider web developers to be in computer science, although I've heard that computer scientists themselves don't think that it is a computer science degree, right? Because you can become a web developer or a mobile developer with basic certification, right? You don't need a computer science degree for that. But oh well, that's a different topic. And so where is computer science used? It's used in pretty much everything, everywhere that's digital, right? There's nothing online that you're using that hasn't been programmed or written by somebody. That's computer science in action. So all those examples plus anything else that's online. Um, Popular food delivery options, popular applications, right? I don't know, iOS, Windows, your phone, the code behind it, right? Online banking, the video, and the software I'm using to record this. All of these things, these are all popular applications of computer science. Anything digital, there you go. So kind of just jumping right into it, looking at technical communication through the lens of computer science, I wanted to go over some possible internal artifacts, right? What are some examples of internal artifacts in computer science, right? And so one of the most common day-to-day ones would be emails, right? Emails to an employee. Maybe you're requesting an ETA for a project. Maybe you're asking for meeting notes that you forgot to take. These type of things, small internal communications, they don't really go anywhere, but they definitely add up to a final product, right? You've also got pseudodocs, right? This is something that's really niched. Um, in programming, you commonly have to build on other people's code, right? You can never expect a flat sheet piece of code. And so pseudodocs, pseudocode is pre-existing code. Pseudodocs are documents that describe that code, but most of the time it's incorporated inside the code itself. But these are also things that programmers share between themselves, right? Just so they're all on the same page. They know what they have to do. They know what the other person did. They know what the code's doing, right? Because it's really hard to look at code and understand what it's doing. API documentation. Don't know if you've ever seen that or not, but a lot of things are too complicated to program yourself. So you connect them with an external third-party thing that's called an API. Those are really complex, right? Like AI APIs are complex, right? Stripe for payments, those APIs are complex. So when you connect those APIs, you have to use documentation so that you know what you're doing, what works, what doesn't work. And there's also API documents for just regular programming languages. I will show you an example of that later on. Internal deliverables, right? So these are things that you could deliver to a, I don't know, manager, project manager in a company, right? So for example, a project, right? I don't know, I finished my task, I finished my monthly project. Maybe there's a 6 month long project. I finished that and I turned it into my boss or my manager, my project manager, right? That's an internal deliverable. Yearly reviews, these are often things that have a lot of build up to them, right? You spend like a month or two working on them, at least from what I've seen. Uh, and yeah, those are things that you got to submit to most of the time administration, management. They kind of look over things and you get reviews about yourself. So that's more of a finalized deliverable that you submit to someone. Budgeting too, right? When you build a software, you have to calculate how much it's going to cost to build it, how much it's going to cost to run it, what the maintenance costs are, these type of things. That's not something you put together in a Word document in 10 minutes, right? That's something you sit down, you work on for a couple minutes, for a couple of days. You put up together a final form, you give that to, I don't know, finance department, administrator, management, these type of things. They're internal deliverables, right? Because you're kind of maybe giving a half completed project or part of a completed project to somebody. who's at a higher authority to review things for you. External artifacts, right? Client communications. I mean, for a company that deals with clients, right? Maybe, I don't know, Canvas, information design systems, I believe it's called, right? They build chips, which is a form of computer science. They build chips for big companies like Apple. You would communicate, right? In that case, it would be with Apple. You'd communicate with them like, hey, we're doing this, we're doing that. These are small things, day-to-day things that you might want for like clarification purposes, updates, these type of things. They're not final, huge deliverable projects. Investor communications, right? You need to have earning calls and income discussions with investors. You have to have a really good relationship with your investors, or your company's not going to do well. So that's kind of a day-to-day thing too. Blogs and forums, right? Programmers get stuck a lot, and blogs and forums are things that sometimes come up clutch, right? They help. Things like Stack Overflow. A lot of programmers, when they see somebody going through something they themselves went through, they'll write their own answer down. So that's what blogs and forums do. External deliverables, right? A slideshow like this right now. I'm building a slideshow, I'm presenting it. Maybe a user manual for a product. So like, I don't know, I got a small user manual for a webcam. Press relations is important if you're a big company that has publicly traded stock, which most tech companies are. So that's something that's, released out to the public. And of course, when I mention all of these deliverables and artifacts, I'm saying them from the lens of somebody who, is working at OTW. Because if you look at all the discussion boards, a lot of us are doing computer science. And you can't write technical documentation for computer science if you don't know what's going on, if you don't know computer science itself. So that's why a lot of these things are embedded in computer science themselves. Because, I mean, how are you going to write technical communication for software if you don't understand software? It doesn't make sense. So anyways, going into some examples. Here's an example of an API documentation for Java, a programming language. So you can kind of see how it's broken down. They tell you the programming language and version, description, general info, equivalency, so things you can use in place, example usages, just general information as to what it does, how you can use it. Pseudocode, right? So this is an example of pseudocode that's been incorporated into a program. So you can see there's a small Java program here that's generating a number, random number, picking a random color, right? If you just look at this, there's no way to tell. But when you have these documents up here, these comments, then you know what's going on. That's pseudodocs, right? Or pseudocode, whichever one you want. That's a form of technical communication. You can kind of see the breakdown here. And this is really small, right? Most pseudocode is long. Pseudodocs can go pages long, right? This is a small 5-minute program. Somebody probably wouldn't even write pseudodocs for this. It's not worth it for 5 minutes of programming. But this is just a really small example of what goes on. Emails, right? I mean, this is really simple. Everybody's written emails. You've got an update on past work. You've got next step and clarifications. You got a subject. You got somebody who you're emailing it to, right? Everyday stuff. We know this. Press relations, right? So these are just examples, right? Here's an example of press relations at CES, right? So CES is a huge tech event each year. A lot of companies go. A lot of companies have booths there. And at the end, there's presentations. So that's what this is, right? You can see kind of the grand finale presentation that's going on. But most of CES booths look like this, right? This would be a slideshow or presentation example. You can see it's a Samsung booth and they've got their own little thing. So for example, going back here, all the slides that are going to come up here, that's all technical communication, right? Somebody wrote that, somebody went through that. Same thing here, all that text over there, technical communication in one way or another. And so kind of looking at what good technical communication is, right? Kind of diving into that. And this is something that's important for us at OTW as technical writers. And there are things that we should pay attention to. So these apply to a lot of different scenarios, right? But one indicator of good technical communication is that you're simply describing software usage, right? Software could be hard to understand, and a good user manual is crucial to make sure that people can use your software. So for example, if you were to say, click on the blue square, top right, or if you just said click on the square for a software, right? One of them is a lot more understandable and clear than the other. You want to aim to be as understanding and as clear as possible. suited for your audience, right? If you're writing API docs, you're not going to try to get it in a language that the regular person can understand, right? If you're writing API docs, you're going to write it in a way that a programmer can understand. You're going to use technical terms, right? You can use terms like class, program, main script, this, that. If you're writing documentation for a uh, software that an employee would use who doesn't have any knowledge of coding, you wouldn't say something like click compile, right? Or debug your program. You not program, debug whatever you're working on. You'd say something like, I don't know, click the green cross on the top of the screen, or click the red ladybug. That was an icon we had for an IDE a while ago. Visuals and charts, right? So if you're writing technical documentation for computer science, you're probably documenting data flows somewhere, logic flows, and logic flows can get complex. And so I could either write it in a huge paragraph or I could have some nice, neat maps, flow charts that kind of show where everything's going. Decision's yours. One of them does a lot better job of explaining something than the other. Clear headings, right? So again, APIs get long, um, documentation gets long, and if I just have a bunch of text and no headings or even unclear headings, nobody's going to want to read that. It's going to be super unclear. And so instead of saying, for example, a heading that says just download the software or a heading that says section 2.1. Say you're talking to somebody and say, hey, go to the heading that says download the software, go to the heading that says section 2.1. Which one is more descriptive, right? These type of things. Follow company branding, right? If you're working for Apple, don't use blue from Samsung, right? That's stupid. So just match your company colors, match the branding that you're going with, where it's appropriate, right? Use appropriate language, right? Like I said, you got to have professional language and you got to have language that matches your audience, right? So there's an example right there. That's kind of a goofy example, but a more suitable example would be the example I gave on the last slide, right? About saying click the red button or saying click the debug button, something like that. You want to describe connections clearly, right? And so computer science is all about connecting things, right? Or networking mainly, right? How are you going to connect things? How are you going to connect networks? How are you going to connect people? How are you going to connect programs, applications on whatever you're building? And so if you're describing this, you're probably writing an API documentation. If you're doing that, don't say something like copy the API token, period. Right? Say something like copy the API token from this on your dashboard. This I've worked with APIs. The amount of documentation that simply says copy the API token, period, irritates me. They don't know where it is. You need to describe clearly where everything is so people can easily find it, even if it's programmable. Write code comments clearly. Again, I'm giving this from the perspective that most of us are computer science students, right? So if you're writing code, you've got comments in it, and your comments need to be descriptive and they have to be clear. So for example, right here, you could have a comment that says this generates a random number, or you could have a comment that says this accesses blah, 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 uses this, uses that. The second one is much more specific than the first one, right? Because now the person who reads it knows exactly what's going on. Use version numbers. Version numbers matter a lot, right? When you're building applications. I've built apps myself, right? It may seem like 2.3, 2.4 don't really have a difference. There can be a huge difference because of just the way data is set up behind the thing. So don't say the new update has a bug. I can't click something the way you're normally used to be able to do, right? If you're, I don't know, creating a ticket for something that's going on. Instead, you could say, version 2.5, which is a new update. It's not creating new objects or new tickets or new classes the way version 2.4, the way version 2.3 did. Be specific with your version numbers. General rule of thumb, just be specific overall. And so a rule of thumb that we at OTW can keep is that if we're writing technical communication for computer science, we should just try to be as descriptive, yet as simple as possible. But at the same time, we should match our audience's knowledge. And don't yap. Don't write 6 pages for something that could be described in a quarter of a page, right? A lot of computer science is focused on speed, which I found when I was reading through. So if your document drags on and on and on, nobody's going to want to read that. Be quick, be concise, but be descriptive and simple at the same time. Match your audience. So that's kind of the takeaway from those last slides. kind of zooming in onto AI itself and computer science. The elephant in the room, right? Is artificial intelligence good or is it bad for computer science? Um, and so, in a nutshell, if you refuse to accept AI, you're going to get replaced by it, right? It's a tool, it's something that you need to work with. I was doing research on this and I came up with my own, interesting analogy for this, right? Henry Ford introduced the modern, whatever it's called, the manufacturing line, right, to the industry, right? That's why he could make cars for so cheap. You could build cars without an assembly line, but you're never going to beat the person who does use an assembly line because they're going to beat you on cost, they're going to beat you on quality, they're going to beat you on everything. So it's something like that, right? You have to be willing to incorporate it and use it as a tool to build yourself in the industry. If you completely shun it away, you're not going to do great. And yeah, a lot of news sources, which you can refer to in the works cited, right? Which is long, but I mean, it's all in there. In a nutshell, job roles are going to change. Yeah, it's going to happen. But jobs won't be eradicated on a large scale, right? So don't expect like layoffs of like 50% of people. That's not going to happen. That happens when companies lose money. AI is more of a tool than it is to replace others, which you'll see commonly recurring throughout this presentation. That's a commonly recurring theme. So how does AI help computer scientists, right? So there's some things in here that are more towards the coding side of things, and there's some things in here that are more towards technical writing. Again, the reason is because you cannot write technical documents for computer science if you don't know what computer science is, right? You can't write an API for Java if you don't know what Java is. If you don't know Java, it doesn't make sense, which is why having both skills is a good thing to do. Um, Debugging, this is something that doesn't really have much to do with technical communication, but it's still something that's important. Debugging takes a lot of time. You got to go through each line, you got to go through each sentence, you got to go through each phrase, each keyword. A lot of times your program doesn't work because you're missing a semicolon or you're missing a parenthesis. So AI can do that really quick, really fast. It'll point it all out. Many IDEs, and an IDE is a coding software and environment. They have built-in AIs to do this. So I use IntelliJ. They have that. Performance optimization, again, something that's more techie based. Um, there are companies that are using AI to enhance hardware so your software can run on it better. NVIDIA did it with their GPUs. So that's another way AI is being used, right? Computer science scientists can now build stronger, more robust applications without having to worry about frying the consumer's hardware. Again, more techy. Code skeleton building. Okay, so this is something that technical writers and computer scientists can use, right? When you write code skeleton, you're basically writing an outline. Yeah, you don't have everything in there, but you kind of have like, okay, first I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. You always want to do that before you write any code. So that's what this does. If that skeleton is descriptive and it includes everything, which is good technical writing skills, then what's going to happen? Your code's going to be a lot easier to write. Same thing. You can use AI to assist in building it, the skeleton, or completely build it and you look at it yourself. We'll go into that more later. You can use those to kind of speed up development, speed up prototyping, these type of things. So you could use GPT-4. I've heard Claude AI is better for debugging and coding and these type of uses, although I prefer GPT, but it is up to you. Again, quick prototyping. Again, something that's more techy. Uh, you can quickly prototype things using AI. Just tell the AI to build it, run it. GitHub has something like this. Same thing with low code or no AI platforms. Now people who don't know how to code can code because of AI, right? They've built an interface that you can kind of drag stuff around on, and behind the scenes, AI is doing all the coding for you. So Bubble.io is an example. Flutterflow is an example. Automated testing. Testing is a really lengthy process, but with AI, you can run a bunch of tests in a small amount of time, and you can, estimate ideal consumer behavior. These are things that are really techy most of the time, but they're important to know if you're doing technical writing for computer scientists, because you're going to be discussing these things in those documents. Quick UI, UX design. So UI is user interface. That's pretty much how things look. So why does my screen look like that? Because a UI designer said it would. UX is user experience. So where do you place buttons? Where do you place things? How do you lay out your page so people look at it, right? If you do UI or UX design, you have to be good at technical writing, right? So again, AI is helping in UI and UX. As a technical writer, you can use that alongside to help do technical jobs, technical writing jobs in the computer science field. An increased ability to add features. Again, something that's more programmer based, programming based, not really something that's applicable to technical communication, but it's important to know if you do technical documents. Yeah, features that were once really difficult to add are now a lot easier because you can just connect an um, AI API, right? And so they're much easier. Technical documents, right? This is 100% technical communication, 99% technical communication, 1% programming. This is the biggest one out of this for us at OTW. AI is going to write those technical documents quick, right? And it can create outlines for them quick. It can proofread them for us quick. It can fact check them for us quickly. These type of things, it'll be able to do it quickly. So you can use ChatGPT, you can use Claude, you can use Gemini, whatever floats your boat. And so, in summary, AI is going to help computer scientists move faster. So I've been saying, this is important. This is important. Why is it important? Because we have to be ready ourselves as technical writers to be doing things at a much more elevated pace. If AI is making computer scientists move faster, we as technical writers are going to have to move at the same pace to keep up. Otherwise, we're going to go out of business. So AI is helping comp sci majors and jobs and whatnot. It's helping them move faster. The ethical usage of AI, this is really standard across all industries. But for computer science and technical writing, ownership, right? Don't use AI to write something and say it was yours. Same thing goes for technical documents. Don't be lazy, right? It's easy to plug a software into AI and say, here, write technical documents for this. You have to remember AI can access the website in a way a human can't access it. So it's going to be easier for AI to use that website, so to speak, than a human is. So we have to make sure that as technical writers at OTW, we are not relying on AI 100% or even 90% or even 80% or even 70 or 60% for that matter to write it. We have to use AI as a tool, but we have to do most of the heavy lifting ourselves. It's okay to use AI to speed up. It's okay to use AI to get rid of mundane tasks, but we have to do the heavy lifting, right? We can't get lazy. Plagiarism, I don't need to go into detail about that, right? AI can sometimes accidentally plagiarize, especially when it starts talking about how it's pulling sources from the web, which was recently added in some AI models. Just be careful about that. There's no need to go to detail. Assuming perfection, right? Uh, we have to humanize our writing. It's very easy to look at AI writing and say this is an AI bot, right? Most people use coach AI checkers. I don't have to do that. I look at AI, say it's AI. I know when it's AI because I can tell how blocky the text is. The text doesn't flow naturally. All these things. And if you start putting that in technical documents, your technical documents are going to get hard to understand. And so, if you use AI, again, like I said, use it less than 60% of the time and humanize your writing, right? You're not speaking to a robot with your technical documents. You're speaking to a human who's going to use your software. So make it easy for them to understand, make it easy to flow. Don't make your text robotic, make it human and easy to understand. So I thought this would be interesting if I were to go and see what AI thought about the future of computer science with AI in the lens of technical communication. So that's the prompt. We basically asked different chatbots, hey, how will AI impact computer science moving forwards? And look at this through the lens of technical communication. And then we tell it to do it in like 100 words around that. And also, before I go into it, this is like the complete raw answer, right? We didn't ask for clarifications. We didn't ask for, you know, even more, I don't know, development on something. We just took the, I just, sorry, not we, I just took the initial response and I extrapolated from that. because I, as a human, don't want to influence its answer. I want to see what AI itself thinks, right? And I know AI is not real, it's not human, but it definitely has an ability to think and make predictions. So I think it's a valuable insight. Uh, GPT says that AI is going to revolutionize the industry through automations. Okay, so how does this relate to us as technical writers? Again, things are going to be moving at a much faster pace. We have to keep up with it. Otherwise, whatever company we contract, they're going to drop us and go for the other one. Speed is key in business, right? And we're doing a business, we're OTW, and we're doing technical writing. We have to be fast. We have to be ready to match the pace of those computer scientists. So this is AI is going to allow for documents to be completed much more faster. They're going to be much more accurate, and they're going to provide easier language translation, right? And that's going to make the internet accessible to a lot more people. How does that relate to us? Well, again, match the pace, match the accuracy too. Don't drop in accuracy, and AI can help us with that in a big way. And I'm going to go into some tools we can use later on. Um, Language translation, right? You know, sorry, say 10 years ago, if we were writing a document for a software that was used in America and in China. I, as a business owner, if I own that business, I would say I want the documentation in Chinese too, because that's the language that the Chinese employees are going to understand the best. So now it's going to be kind of difficult to get that to work, right? Because now you have to find somebody who can verify Chinese, right? They know if it's right or not. You can't just plug your entire thing into Google Translate. We've seen how Google Translate butchers things. And so, same thing here, except AI is a lot more accurate and reliable than Google Translate because it has a mind of its own for per se, and it can, kind of proofread as it goes. So now we're still going to want somebody who, you know, speaks the language natively and can answer and review that document in a different language. But AI is just going to make it a lot faster, a lot easier. We're not going to need, for example, if it was a 100-page document for some reason, then you'd need like 5 or 6 people. And now maybe you'll need two. This type of thing. Um, Same thing with disabilities, right? Accessibility for disabilities. As a business owner, if you discriminate in hiring for disabilities, then you're subject to lawsuits. That's an entire different line you don't want to go down, right? It's also not something you should be doing as a human, as a good person. But what AI does is that it'll take our technical writing and it can make it much easier for people who have disabilities, certain disabilities, to, understand it, right? For example, somebody has dyslexia, and we write a 20-page long documentation using big words. They're not going to have a fun time reading that, right? And that's inconsiderate on our end. So we can use AI to kind of, tweak our document, say, hey, make a version that's friendly for people who have dyslexia, or make a version that's friendly for people who have ADHD. I don't know. Just AI can help include everybody. Personalized learning, better chatbots. This is for more of like employee training, which again, clinical writers have a huge part in, right? They have to write the training themselves. AI can just kind of tell you how people behave, how people respond to it. Better chatbots, that's just for online, APIs and whatnot. The actual prompts there, I'm not going to read it out. I just pretty much summarized it. Then I asked Google Gemini, the 1.5 Flash version. Gemini said that AI is going to automate boring tasks. So for us in technical communication, what does that mean? Things that maybe we didn't want to do, things that made our fingers hurt when we type on keyboards. AI is going to take care of that, right? Maybe proofreading. Proofreading is really boring, in my opinion. I don't like proofreading. AI can do that much faster, especially if you have long documents. It's also going to allow us to focus on important things, right? So say, let's think of an example. We have to write documentation on how to use this new software that's used in retail stores, for example, okay? So now there would be the important side, right? Like how you actually add products to your inventory, how you build things, how you connect the, you know, the scanner that we ship with your software. And then there's things like how to connect a printer to print your receipts, right? That's something an AI can do. If we as technical writers start focusing on, for example, a Dell product or an HP printer and say, this is how you get it to work with our software, it's standard everywhere. It's kind of a waste of our time, right? Relatively speaking, it's important, but it's not as important as documenting what our own software does. So AI could take care of that. We could focus on, more of how to add things to your inventory, how to bulk order items, how to ship these type of things that are more self-centered. I'm not saying completely ignore that. That's the last thing you want to do. You still want to look at it, but just keep that in mind. Remember my 60% rule. AI is going to assist with code generation, debugging. That's more programmer stuff that doesn't have anything to do with us, really, but just things we should know, again, so we match their pace. Technical documents, right? There's a variety of ways it's going to assist with technical documents. I've already gone into that. It did mention two problems, which I found interesting. Um, can AI systems understand and fulfill human intent, right? Can an AI write a technical documentation or draft a technical documentation in a way that a human will be able to understand? Remember, robotic words, humanizing your language, same thing here. And will AI generated solutions be positive for a broader audience, right? And so, we're in a first world country. We have access to AI. What if we built a software, for example, that is helping an impoverished country somewhere, and we send it over there, and it's difficult to use? Do you get what I'm saying? Like, this is not the greatest example, but are we going to be able to use AI in a way that fits every single person head to toe? Probably not, but that's just something Gemini brought up. I thought that's what it meant. I stuck to my rule of not asking clarifications because I, as a human, don't want to influence it. I wanted to see what the raw thought was. Claude 3.5 Sonnet. This is one that not many people know of, but Claude said that it's going to transform how documentation and communication works. I've already yapped about that. There's going to be intelligent code explanations, which is kind of useful. Now, as technical writers, we don't have to sit and sift through code so we can write, for example, a SOGU document about it, right? Which I don't know if you remember or not. That was the document that explained what the code did. Or takes from the comments of what somebody wrote in their code and kind of puts it into a nicer sheet. If AI can do that much faster and write a quick summarization paragraph, that's nice. Just a quick clarification. A lot of times it's like, well, why don't I just run the software and tell what it does? It doesn't work that way, right? There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that happens that's really important. Data management, logic, workflows, these type of things. You can't tell from front end. So you have to check the code itself. This one was cool. Natural language and programming language will be bridged, right? So if I walked up to somebody and I said, if you click on this button, it's going to create a new class on the back end, and that class is going to generate random integers using a random class, which was imported through an API. That API runs through a server on the back end, it's not going to make sense then, right? What AI can do is it can take that programming language and it can kind of make it easier for somebody to understand, somebody who doesn't know programming. We'll call it normal language for now. AI can kind of bridge that gap, and it could make it easier for a programmer who's writing technical documentation to remember that, hey, I might know what this means, but somebody else might not. That's going to allow for clearer technical documents. It's also going to require the development of strong technical skills. And I kind of sat at this and kind of thought about it for a second. But then it went on to clarify that that was to oversee AI generated content, which is self-explanatory, right? Again, 60% AI, 60% or less AI. AI will enhance and not replace technical communicators. I thought that was neat too. Basically, AI is just going to amplify who you are as a technical communicator. DeepSeek. This is the DeepSeek R1. Yes, this is the AI model that crashed the US stock market. And said NVIDIA stock plummeting. That's the Chinese one. Yep, that's it. This one said there'd be significant impact. It's going to improve algorithm design, optimizing a system. Again, programmer, techie stuff. Doesn't matter to us, OTW. It's going to drive innovation in machine learning, natural language processing, data analysis. It's going to streamline documentation. That matters for us, right? So again, we have to match the speed. The biggest threat that we are facing as AI enters and dominates the computer science industry is that they are going to move at a much faster pace. We have to keep up with it. The second we slow down, we lose contracts and we go out of business. Um, DeepSeek also said that understanding of AI is important, which is true, and collaboration between humans and AI is crucial, although that sounds like some faraway dystopian thing. I don't think that's something that's crucial right now, but it did so. Disclaimer, DeepSeek is censored, so I don't know if that had an impact or not, but it does have censorship. So in summary, AI needs humans to help, and it agrees that it'll eliminate redundant tasks, but it'll also foster growth. So that fostering growth can be from speed to accuracy to minimalism, right? We at OTW have to be ready to work with computer scientists and computer science companies and ensure that we're on a similar pace. So kind of wrapping things up, in conclusion, notes for OTW consultants, right? What are the long-term effects of AI? What are things that we should kind of keep in mind? Diminishing critical thinking skills. And this is mainly in students, but it's something that could be applied. Coding takes critical thinking. And if you just ask an AI each time you have a problem, yo, how do I do this? Your critical thinking skills are going to drop, right? So that's just something that could be a long-term effect. It's something we should know. Loss of tolerance. Yeah. AI bots are much more accurate than humans. And so it was a question that I read that are we going to become intolerant as a species to, mistakes in the workforce, right? Because humans make a lot of mistakes in code and code documents. So that's something we should keep in mind as well. Loss of human connection, especially in our writing, right? Our writing should not become robotized. There has to be a very, very, very strong and a very overtly majority effect of humanizing our documents. Loss of patience, same thing as loss of tolerance, right? But are we going to lose our patience? Are we going to expect things to become much more quicker, right? There's a point where, you want to speed up, but you also don't want to go so fast where you start butchering things and you don't have that sense of patience, right? There's always that middle ground, that sweet spot. Oh, and curriculum's going to change. Yeah. So what does that mean for us? The people who are now coming into the field, the people who we may work with on a contract base from a different company, they may have a different knowledge skill set. They may have a deeper knowledge skill set. It may be even less than what the previous generation of computer scientists in a contracted company had. Something to keep in mind, something to know as we interact with clients. AI is unpredictable. Yeah. I mean, we've seen the rapid growth of AI since 2022 when GPT got released. And so there's no way we can sit here right now and say in 2035 AI is going to be like this because we have no idea what's going to happen. So that's just something, again, keep in mind. We got to be on our toes. New job opportunities, right? AI companies will take growth and they're going to open computer science applications jobs in the AI sector. So maybe if you had computer scientists working for DoorDash, right? And they were focused in transactions. Now they'll take up 50% of the transaction team and send them to the artificial intelligence company, right, to optimize their prices or something. So just we should expect that shift. We should expect that change in workforces. You may be thinking like, okay, this has nothing to do with my company, OTW, and this has everything to do with a contracting company. If you're, interacting with a contracted company, you got to know what's going on with them, right? It changes the dynamic. There's going to be less interest in computer science. There was a huge crowd that ran towards computer science, and that is now saturated. Same thing's going to happen with AI. So what does that mean for us? We can maybe over the next 10 years expect a decline in the amount of computer science contracts that we're signing and an increase in the amount of more AI related contracts we're signing, right? Because AI comes with a lot of legal implications and a lot of disclaimers and a lot of AI makes mistakes, don't do this if the AI tells you to do it. These type of things, there's going to be a lot of things that technical writers are going to have to write for that. So that's going to increase CS writing. It's not going to tank, but it'll definitely edge off a little bit. There's going to be new specializations or certifications required at one point or another, right? Just something to be ready for, and maybe even something to obtain. If you're writing technical documentation about computer science and that computer science contracted company requires their employees to have a decent understanding of AI, maybe it's time you just take a 3-month course in AI, right? Doesn't cost too much. Maybe at OTW we could cover it for our employees or interns. And it's kind of a invest now, benefit later thing. Positions are going to be replaced by AI, right? So those are positions that are already hanging on their last thread. So again, something to keep in mind. Understand that there's going to be cost cutting. Saturation. AI is going to become part of our everyday life. We're going to forget about it one day. Like in terms of it's just something that's acceptable, just like the internet, right? So just again, something to keep in mind. So how's this going to impact our work? The demand for technical writers may dissolve. Yeah, because AI is now doing a chunk of the work. And so we're technical writers are always going to be needed, and AI won't get rid of them, but it may decrease the manpower required. So what does that mean for OTW? Well, from a business perspective, you need to come up with a new unique selling proposition, right? USP, something that kind of makes us immune to that. You got to be quick about it. I would recommend speed, right? Be quick. Show that you can do things quickly. Show that you can match the speed of AI, because that's why every single company is using AI, speed and cost effectiveness. So that's would be my recommendation to kind of meet with that. AI is your friend. Use it, don't abuse it. Work with it, right? Um, if I owned a technical writing firm and somebody came to me and said, I wrote this technical documentation with AI 100%, I'd fire them on the spot, right? That's not what you do. Um, you got to use it to your benefit, but don't abuse it. I don't think I need to explain that. And our work will definitely become easier. Yeah. Maybe to write software, documentation about software, we're not going to have to dig through code anymore, right? Maybe there'll be an AI generated summary. Maybe it'll become easier to understand software because some software is really hard to understand, right? Especially if you have to write documents about the ins and the outs and the implications and the exceptions and everything. AI could simplify that. Easier to draft documents, if I have to, for example, say, hey, go to a project manager and be like, this is a rough draft I have. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Rather than spending a week writing a rough draft. Now you can do it in 3 days because AI can make it faster. And by the way, I would find it acceptable to have AI write your rough draft, right? If you used AI to completely write your rough draft, I think that's acceptable as long as your final draft for a project is your work, right? Because again, AI is going to help with prototyping, speed. We have to be quick, but we can't sacrifice on quality. Easy to proofread, right? I can plug this into AI, it'll tell me exactly where all the mistakes are, and it'll be 10 times better than Microsoft Word. That type of. Okay. And so what are some key recommendations for us, right? As we are using AI, fact check everything. Just because AI said something doesn't mean it's true. The amount of times I've caught ChatGPT giving me incorrect information is mind-blowing. It's gotten better. AI also commonly goes into loop errors, right? So you'll tell it, for example, sum it down. 1 + 1 is 2. And it'll say, yes, 1 + 1 is 2. And then you'll say, no, it's not, it's 3. It'll accept 3 as a true value. And then you'll tell it's no. It'll take some random guess again. It'll accept that as a true value. It'll keep doing that, and you can get worse and worse and worse errors, especially if it starts stacking, then it's a nightmare. So check for those loop errors, make sure you catch them early, fact check things, and manually check the writing. AI can hallucinate too, right? That was a problem Apple faced when they were incorporating AI. It can make up information that seems really useful, that seems really real, really believable, that is completely made up. Just watch out for that. Again, AI is a tool, not a replacement. AI should amplify your writing and amplify who you are and not replace it. I said this on the last slide, generate drafts, not finals. Use AI to be quick, but don't let AI compromise on your quality, right? Generate that rough draft, that prototype to show to your manager, say, hey, is this good? Generate that quickly with AI and use that save time on perfecting your final draft. Use AI to understand, right? So if you're writing technical documentation, you can use the AI to better understand what you're writing, right? You can never understand too much about something. It's always best to know as much as you can. You can also come up with popular mnemonics or right, for example, say there's a software, right? And it says there's a series of steps that you have to do. Like for example, first you right click, then you end the task, and then you download the program, right? And now you want to make up a pop-up mnemonic for that. So you could go RED. Just remember when task X happens, red. Right click, exit, download. Now that's a really simple one, but you could use AI to make a longer, nicer sentence, something that people remember. These are quick things people could remember. You could put it on a little sign, have it on top of wherever your software is at, if it's a dormant type thing. And yeah, go with that. Use it to your advantage, use it to your benefit. And these are highlights, right? I mentioned a bunch throughout the presentation. By no way does this do justice to everything that I mentioned. Okay, just some tools before I wrap up, before I close. Just some tools that you might want to use. Grammarly and ChatGPT, right? They're both good for helping with writing assistance, although I personally don't like Grammarly. Code Docs Explanation, GitHub Copilot has an explaining code feature. It also completes it. Although I have not used it myself, I don't know how good it is. Claude AI, this is an AI chatbot that's been preferred by developers, right? I've heard more developers saying they use Claude than they use GPT, and it's also something that Claude says themselves, I believe. And so if you don't like Claude, use GPT. If you don't like GPT, use Gemini, although I don't think Gemini is that good. Diagrams and technical documents. If you remember, I said that you had to map out logic flows. Well, you can do that with Lucidchart. Makes it pretty easy with AI. General inquiries, research, expanding on knowledge, learning more about something, any chatbot. But mainly GPT, Google Gemini, because they have the biggest data resources. And maybe now DeepSeek, although be aware of censorship on there. So to kind of, summarize, if I had to put one piece of advice out there for RTW, how this relates to us. AI is going to make computer science move a lot faster. And at OTW, we have to be ready to work with that speed, work with that updated pace, and at the same time, make sure we're not sacrificing any of our ethical, values, which I went over. We're also making sure that we're not sacrificing our quality, right? A lot of people think if you increase the speed, your quality goes down. That's not how it works. If you increase the speed, but you're watchful of your quality, you're going to be fine. That's what you have to do. If we want to meet with this new technology, if you will, if we want to be competitive in our own business realm of technical writing at OTW, we have to convey to our contractors that, hey, we're fast, we don't compromise on quality, and we can be more cost effective for you, because those three are the biggest reasons why companies are using AI, and we have to kind of match them, if that makes sense. But that is it. That's a really detailed summary. Not even that detailed, but it's decently detailed about AI, what's in it, what's involved. Again, just remember, match the speed, match the quality, and match the price, the cost effectiveness. And remember the 60% rule, and we're good, we're golden. Use AI, don't abuse it, use it as a tool, and we'll be okay from there. Thank you for listening, if you're still here by now, and I hope this was some benefit to you. I hope that you'll refer to it. I hope that you'll use it in the future. The sources provided are in the documentation with this presentation. So if you wanted to look at that, if you wanted to read more about something, they're all there. You can look at that. But I will end there. Thank you very much.